Yeah. But that was good. Pulled that right out. I kind of like scary. Yeah. Really not. Like going music unless that's we need thought. Yes.
Oh, please. You guys are taking notes?
Yeah, there's some conflict. Yeah, well, they say that.
Is it supposed to be? Is it
supposed
to shoot Hamilton?
I'm old enough that I literally. Yeah, but a lot of now for me it was like
Make sure it's not in my coat pocket.
Oh. And they say that
There might be more videos.
that's what But anyway, there was this, my arm was black. My friend kept screaming and going, I was like, this. What? The lecture. And reports lecture. And then different places on it. If you just put your pen on it'll take you to the exact point of the lecture and play it.
So, I think
I don't know.
oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Then you go listen.
I do it in the part.
Much better than the chemistry.
I would just start to do
It's like that you were working. Just I guess just be very. You have this. You have to watch. I don't know.
So it's gonna definitely go past 3.
Yeah. It's got an hour right behind.
Yes.
Yes.
I heard of it, but I didn't know who it was, so it had some kind of travel and business and availability and asked if he could push it and that was my salary 30 or something. So
She'll be by.
All rise.
Have a seat. All right, we'll go on the record. We're on the record. It states the Paul Trouette 2825-6392. Parties are present, jurors are not present. Anything to address before we bring our jurors back, Mr. Becker? And Mr. Henderson. All right, let's get on. Please be seated. Jurors are in the courtroom, properly seated. Hope you had a good lunch. I'm ready to get started with our afternoon.
State's next witness, Laura Tenneson.
Ma'am, you've been called as a witness. If you'll please approach. Madam Clerk is going to swear you in, so if you'll just make your way in front of Madam Clerk, raise your right hand, and you sworn.
Do you solemnly swear that testimony you're about to offer in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
And then make your way all the way over here to the witness stand, please. Have a seat, please be comfortable, and you may inquire when you're ready, Mr. Hunter.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Say your full name and spell your last name.
Laura Tenneson, Tenneson.
All right, and Ms. Tenneson, what do you do for a living?
I'm a litigation paralegal.
And are you a resident of Coeur d'Alene?
Yes.
How long have you lived there?
I moved here in '96, moved away in 2000, came back in 2013, and have been here ever since.
And I want to direct your attention to a person. Do you know who Teresa Bourne is?
Yes.
And how do you know?
She's a very good friend.
How long?
since, it was either 2019 or 2020.
Let's think back to February of 2025, specifically around February 22nd. This year, you recall any events of that day and surrounding?
Yes.
Did you attend the town hall event at the Coeur d'Alene High School auditorium on that date?
Yes.
How did you first hear about it?
A friend of mine, a mutual friend of mine and Teresa's, contacted me and asked me if I wanted to be a group of friends.
And had you ever been to any town hall events before?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you aware of the sponsor of this town hall event on February 22nd?
Yes, they're almost always sponsored by the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee.
And so you've attended one sponsored by KCRCC for sure?
Many.
In the past?
Mhm.
And where are those normally held in your experience?
Usually in a church, usually at Candlelight Church or the altar.
So this one was not, was your understanding that this one would not be held in church?
Correct.
Did you understand that it would be a public event?
I knew from previous experience of reserving spaces in the Coeur d'Alene Library and the local schools that any events that take place in those public locations are public events.
So specific to this one, that was your understanding as well?
Yes.
And what did you hope to get out of attending this town hall event on February 22nd?
I hoped to make my voice heard to our local legislators.
Was it your understanding there would be an opportunity to do so during this town hall event?
No.
And so, when you say make your voice heard, were you planning to stop the event from happening?
No. I just plan to dissent at certain points throughout the town hall. I've attended, like I said, many of these town halls, and the format is they don't allow public comment.
So let me clarify the last point you're making. Based on your experience attending these in the past, how do they normally go in terms of format?
When we arrive at the event, we're usually given an opportunity to write questions down. And then, I don't know who, but somebody with the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee decides which questions are asked to the legislators. And that is the format of every town hall sponsored by the KCRCC that I've attended.
And at the prior ones that you've attended, were you able to dissent, make your voice heard in that fashion at those events?
Yes.
Have you ever been forced to leave any of those events as a result?
No.
Have you ever been physically removed from any of those events?
No.
And so, go back to the one that was held on February 22nd, when you arrived at Coeur d'Alene High School, at any point, either at the entrance to the school or the auditorium itself, was there any kind of security screening?
No. Not that I saw.
Is there anybody there advising anybody of rules, regulations, or restrictions?
No.
Did you have to sign an agreement or reserve any tickets that contained a content policy, anything of that nature prior to attending? As far as you're aware, is this essentially anyone who's wanted to attend could?
Yes.
Where did you sit when you got to the Coeur d'Alene High School auditorium?
We originally sat, our group of friends originally sat in the middle section near the back, but we ended up having to move.
Why was that?
Because we saw that Jeremy Locken was right behind us, and we knew that he would film anything we tried to do or say.
You're familiar with this person, Jeremy Locken?
Yes.
And I think you said us, who all did you attend this event with at the time that you got there?
Do you want me to say first names or first and last?
Your call, and if it's a last name is needed, I'll call.
Okay. I attended with Jess and her husband Adam, Megan, Tamara, and Teresa.
It's Teresa Vorpal.
Yes.
Did Teresa arrive at the same time as you did?
No.
So she got there sometime after the beginning of the event?
Yes, she arrived about 20 minutes late.
And when you got to the event, describe the atmosphere at the outset.
It was pretty lively. There were a lot of people there. There were a lot more people than I've seen at the previous town halls, which I was excited about.
Are you familiar with the sheriff of Cook County,
Yes.
Robert Norris? Did you see him at the event at the outset?
Not initially, no.
But at some point during this event, did you see him? Before we get to that, I want to ask about how the meeting progressed from the outset into the disruption that occurred. Describe from your perspective what was taking place at the event.
There were, people were being lively, as I said. There were people shouting things out, both in support and not in support of what the legislators were saying. There was a lot more, I guess, dissent than I've seen at previous meetings coming from other groups in the auditorium that I wasn't familiar with.
So let's go to the moment where Sheriff Norris being president of this event. Describe how that began.
I was sitting with my friends, and then after Teresa had arrived late, she sat next to me. I had saved her a seat. And I noticed that Brent Regan and Sheriff Norris.
So I'll ask a couple clarifying questions. We'll get into the rest of what you have to say here. Where did Teresa sit when she arrived?
She sat to my right, and then there was one empty seat next to her.
And then how did you become aware of the sheriff?
Sheriff Norris and Brent Regan were kind of hovering in the area where I was sitting with my friends, and I started to get a little bit nervous.
And by hovering, describe what you mean.
I could see them standing behind us, talking to each other, walking past us on this side of the aisle, walking past us on this aisle, kind of just, they had their attention on us.
And at some point, did Sheriff Norris directly approach your group?
Yes.
And describe how that took place from your perspective.
He approached on my right, which would have also been on Teresa's right, and he came up to our row and told Teresa that she was going to be removed.
So far as you're aware, did he give her any warnings prior to this to say, hey, stop doing these things or else you'll be removed at some point in the future?
No.
As far as you're aware, had any other person come up to you, your group, or Teresa directly and said anything similar?
The defendant came up to our group at the other end of the aisle. I don't know what he said, and it wasn't directed at Teresa.
By the other end, you mean your left-hand side?
Yes.
And so the sheriff, after he asked Teresa, or told Teresa that she's being removed, describe your recollection of what happened at the time.
He said, I am the sheriff of Cooney County, and I'm asking you to leave, and she declined his invitation to leave.
As far as you recall, did you ever identify, other than saying his name is Robert Norris, he's the sheriff, any other authority for why she had to be removed?
No.
Did you record, well, let me ask you this, and then from there, what do you recall taking place?
Teresa turned to me, and I had already been recording at that point because of the hovering. And Teresa turned to me and said, "Get this all on film." And so I continued to record what took place.
And after recording what you subsequently saw, did you provide a copy of that to a member of law enforcement during the investigation?
Yes, I provided a copy to Detective Haley when I met with him at the police station a day or two after the event.
To review a copy of that recording prior to coming here to court.
Yes, in your office.
And did you, after reviewing that copy of the recording that you had, did you do anything with the DVD that it was on?
I initialed and dated the DVD.
In the recording that you viewed on that DVD, was that a true and accurate representation of the recording that you made and subsequently provided to Detective Haley?
Yes, it is.
If I may take, Your Honor.
You may.
Now, we're handing you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 28. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
And what do you recognize?
I recognize my initials and the date that I put on the DVD, and that it is a true and correct copy of the video recording that I took at the town hall on February 22nd.
At this time, Your Honor, State will move to admit State's Exhibit 28.
No, okay.
And permission to publish it.
Any objection?
I think that publishing it is really cumulative at this point. We've seen 4 separate videos of the occurrence with Warrenpool. I'm just not quite sure what additional evidence publishing this one would give.
Do you wish to respond?
Yes, sir. So this is a vantage point not shown by any of the other videos. It is directly from what could be considered the same vantage point that Teresa Warrenpool would have been experiencing this event from. It captures audio of several comments that are made in higher quality than some of the other videos, and so I think it's not cumulative against the evidence.
I'm going to allow the exhibit to be published. This is going to go back with the jury. They likely are going to want to review it, so we might as well all review it together here in court.
I'm going to treat that as approximately 8 minutes, 25 seconds.
Thank you.
So you know, folks, when our nation began, there was some really
Get this all on film.
No, I'm not recognizing it.
What would you like to do?
So yes, we're going to get to
Is this your
we're going to get to one promise. We'll get
Yes, it is.
plenty of chances.
This is not a negotiation.
But you know, the problem
It has to leave.
is the folks.
I haven't been asked to leave.
I'm telling you that.
Look at that.
This is the town hall.
He's showing how intelligent he
Me
is.
too.
With all the
Even also, let's go. Come on.
This mission, they came here to disrupt so that the citizens can't hear. The reality is there's a whole bunch of great things that are happening. The problem is we got a bunch of rabble-rousers who just won't allow it to be spoken. So, you know, the thing is,
My name is Robert Morris. I'm the sheriff of town.
is
We're
I'm
asking
simply
you to leave on
over-talking
video.
because your
Please
voice
get
is
up or be
meaningless right
escorted
now.
out.
And we're just taking care of rabble-rousers. And eventually what's going to happen is
Please don't touch me. Please don't touch me. Please don't touch me.
I just happen to have a nice loud voice that makes microphone.
You're going to
And I can
be removed
talk
also.
over all of you. And I can really, I
Please don't
can
touch
just
me.
talk for all
Okay,
and
I'm
on
asking you
and
to
on.
go.
And this
You want
this
pepper spray?
is afraid
This is a bad
to
idea.
She's spoken up.
This is
I'm letting
And
out.
she doesn't want to suffer the consequences.
Let's go.
Isn't
This is a
that
very bad
problem
idea.
that we're struggling with so many of the kids today? are you? Who
are you? Let me see your badge. Where's the badge? Who the fuck are you?
To hear the legislators, I have watched you for sitting there.
Who is this? Who is this? No, don't you fucking touch me. Don't touch her. You're on film and you're not a sheriff. You're not a sheriff. You're not a sheriff. If you touch me again, I will call the police who are actually in charge here. Stop it. Get the fuck away from me. Don't touch her. This isn't a sheriff. Excuse me, Sheriff Norris. This gentleman is assaulting me. This man is assaulting me. This man is assaulting me. Is this your deputy? Is this your deputy? No, don't fucking touch us. Is he a deputy? These are deputies. Who the fuck are these men? Who the fuck are you? Yeah, that's what they say to rape victims, you fucking piece of shit. You refuse to identify yourselves. Who are you? Who are you?
But the problem is this. They can come here and listen, they came here to interrupt. Isn't that what Elon is exposing in Washington, D.C.? Don't we have that same type of disruption everywhere now?
What's your badge number?
Where are your badges? Who are these people?
I thought Republicans believed in free speech.
That won't interrupt you when somebody's speaking. That's what your problem is. I said you'll get an opportunity to go to a mic and speak. You gotta keep your mouth moving.
There's no public comment.
Get your hands on them. Where are your badges? Who are you?
You two please follow me out here, please.
Get off of her. Get off of her. Who are these people? They don't even have badges.
Doesn't matter.
I'm allowed to film in public. This is public space.
Please leave.
No, I'm going to make sure my friend is safe. If you're assaulting, you're letting people assault. You're letting people assault. You're letting people assault. She's being assaulted.
Both of you, come on.
She's being assaulted. Who are those people? You're letting people assault her.
Hey, Ed. I need 2 more security officers, please.
Need 2 more security officers in the back. Need 2 more security officers in the back.
Is your daughter here?
Ladies and gentlemen, as soon as we get things under control, we will get back to hearing from the legislators.
identified men. The sheriff makes some comments to, and points to, short time after that, they were joined by a third individual. Do you see that third individual present here in the court today?
Yes.
And he's identified where he's seated, and I have clothing he's wearing.
He's seated right here. He's wearing a black jacket with a red emblem and glasses.
Record reflect that he was identified there.
So what?
Based on your recollection, as well as the video that was just played, you recall Sheriff Norris had given a direct instruction, command, or directive of any kind to the defendant during this meeting.
No, I did not.
Any final questions for you when towards the end there, it showed the sheriff essentially asking you to leave as well. And did you comply with that request?
No.
Did he subsequently enforce that request?
Objection, relevance.
What is the relevance?
I think it shows disparate treatment between another individual, the sheriff, and report removing from the meeting, as well as and that compared to
The objection was sustained.
Did the defendant ever come and require you to leave the meeting?
No.
Did he ever engage in any physical conduct or contact similar to what he did with Ms. Warren?
Not toward me, no.
Thank you. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Ms. Tenneson? Yes. Saying that right?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Ms. Tenneson. So, you testified that you've been to many town halls, correct?
Yes.
And the format's always the same?
Yes.
It's generally individuals speak, members in the audience submit their questions, and then those questions are answered by the members at the end of the event, correct?
I have one clarifying remark that some of the questions are asked of the legislators, but
Fair.
mine never have been.
Okay, fair enough. So they select certain questions to ask, and, but not all of them.
Correct.
Okay. And you were present at the beginning of the event, correct?
Yes.
And so you heard the admonishments at the beginning about what the structure would be, and you heard them say that they had security at the event, correct?
No. I did not hear anything about security.
Are you aware that it was said immediately following the admonishment about how the event would take place?
I heard Brent Regan say that it was a private event, but I knew that was incorrect.
And are you on the KCRCC board?
No.
Did you have any hand in planning this event?
No.
Did you have any hand in the contract with the school to facilitate the event?
Not any hand in, but I do have knowledge of what those contracts entail.
This one specifically?
No, I did not have any knowledge of this
So
specifically.
you didn't have knowledge that whether this was a private or public, that you had an opinion on it?
No, I knew it was a public event because it was taking place at a public school, and that's the law.
Why do you think that that's the law?
Because I have family members who work for the school district, I've reserved space with the school district, I've reserved space with the library, I organize all of the local women's marches.
Let me ask you, are you familiar with any rulings by judges or case law to that question?
No.
Are you familiar with any instances or nuance as to it pertaining to trespassing, public or private events?
I don't understand your question.
Do you know of any specific law, not just the opinions of friends and family members, do you know of any specific law as it relates to public or private events held on public property?
It's not a law, it's school district policy.
You would acknowledge that school district policy does not supersede state law, correct? the Idaho Supreme Court makes a decision, that would supersede what the Coeur d'Alene School District Board says?
In some cases, sure.
Okay. We're gonna move on. What was your purpose of going to this event?
I wanted to hear from my legislators, and I wanted to express my dissent with some of the policies that were being passed at the legislative level.
And you wanted to tackle?
Not necessarily. Sometimes dissent can be expressed before or after the meeting. I wasn't necessarily planning on disruption.
Do you recall an interview that you did with KHQ 2 days later?
I did a bunch of interviews, but
This one specifically with KHQ, roughly February 24th of 2025.
I think so.
Do you recall during that interview you said that the purpose of your group showing up was to heckle and cause a scene?
I never said that.
Judge, if I'm going to object to your counsel's play something, I think we need to take this issue outside the presence of the jury. I'm not going to show any of this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief, well, you're going to take a brief recess. Please be reminded not to discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Please not put a decision on the merits of the matter until it's been fully submitted to you for your determination. Try to get it back here as soon as possible.
All rise.
Please have a seat. Parties are present, jurors are no longer present. Mr. Hanners, do you wish to make an offer of proof?
Yes, Judge. This is a small clip of a news interview conducted by KHQ that shows the witnesses or the witness expressing their intent or reason that they were at the event that day. I believe that it comes in under 9025, an official publication of a news agency, as self-authenticating, and it has the witness being interviewed, being asked for a purpose for being at the event that day. And so I would get this is.
And Mr. Hunter, any more?
Well, first and foremost, I've got to examine the evidence under 613, subsection A. So the party must on question whether disclose contents of the matter as part of the attorney that contemplates that would be done prior to it actually being shown to the jury and not have that opportunity. Beyond that, I don't know if this would necessarily fall within the scope of the publications. Seems to, based on the prior two examples, refer to print publications, not broadcast media, but I can understand the counter argument to that, but at the very least, I would like an opportunity to be able to see what is proposed to be put before the jury and to preserve potential additional objections based on what's been shown.
I think that's fair. Shall we play?
Yes.
We chose to heckle instead and to shout out things that were true about what the legislators were telling us. We were told a couple times to stop. We did not stop because we wanted our voices to be heard. Yes, we were disruptive. Yes, we refused to leave when they asked us to.
The additional objection I have is that clearly is not the census will cause. And so it's going to be an inaccurate characterization. The council has addressed the issue of cross-examination. The concern is that is obviously not. It purports to be maybe broadcasted, right, much there in terms of objection, but it witness that is the problem.
Can you play that one more time, Mr. Henners?
We chose to heckle instead and to shout out things that were true about what the legislators were telling us. We were told a couple times to stop. We did not stop because we wanted our voices to be heard. Yes, we were disruptive. Yes, we refused to leave when they asked us to.
May I say something?
No. What I understand from this series of questions is as follows. The question was, your purpose was to heckle and cause a scene. And essentially the question before the witness was, is that in fact what you said during an interview with the media? The witness responded, I never said that. Do you wish to be further heard?
Very legit. The very first statement in this clip of this interview is her acknowledging that they chose to heckle. And she used the word disrupt. I used the phrase cause a scene. But the fact that she was there to heckle and that they were deliberately disrupting certainly impeaches her prior statement as the purpose for her being at the event, and further clarifies, I think, for the jury that they did have a specific intent to ignore the rules. It wasn't that they were singled out. They went there with the specific intent to cause a scene and heckle and disrupt. And that is contradictory both to her testimony as well as to Ms. Warrenpole's testimony. And I think that this witness has laid the foundation that they were there together. They chose to go together as a group. So I believe that appropriate impeachment evidence.
Is this been clipped by you, or was this the clip?
Yes,
the full clip of the full
No,
media?
Your Honor, I clipped just those two portions of her statements as to what their purpose was at the event. The full clip is about an 8 or a 9 minute long interview, most of which I thought was extremely politically charged and not relevant in whatsoever to this trial or evidence. I can get the full clip, but I do think that the vast majority of it is irrelevant. It certainly doesn't hurt my case, I don't think. I just perceived it as not relevant, and the relevant portion would be the intent and the statements made as to the intent of their being at the event.
Well, here's my concern with it. The section that was presented here seems to indicate that there was something said just before. So, again, I chose to heckle instead, which implies that there was some beginning portion of that conversation that may further explain in context that statement. And so I just, in terms of that, that poses some difficulty that either the witness can explain, but in fairness, I think that at least the beginning part of that clip should be played for the court or for counsel so we can put that into context, that full sentence into context.
If I provide an additional concern that based on what counsel indicated was what he was trying to assert from it, the word "we" was used, and I think that presents the issue of hearsay as far as it going to try to assert that it indicates what the intention of anyone else was. Certainly that was what Ms. Tenneson was saying, was "we," but I don't think she can represent what the intents of the other individuals that were present would actually be, and I think that's what the goal is, to try to portray them as a group and that they all share the same intent. And I think based on what Ms. Warrenpole testified under oath, that's not the case, and I think that's going to be a misrepresentation to the jury. And so, in addition to, as Gerard pointed out, the incompleteness of it, the fact that it seems to cut off portions of what she's saying, I think it also creates a concern as to what she's saying goes beyond what she can represent in a court setting.
Let's cross the hearsay bridge when we get to it. at least on an initial basis, the question before the court is this actual or true impeachment material? And thus far, placed in the context in which it's placed. And so just that very limited snippet that seems to imply that something was said beforehand that may further elucidate the purpose of that sentence and whether or not it's actually impeachment. I think out of fairness, we need to understand fully at least that sentence to determine whether or not this is truly impeachment. If it is impeachment, we can then discuss whether or not any exception to the hearsay rule exists here for admission of the statement for impeachment purposes.
Understood, Your Honor. The full clip is not on this computer, unfortunately. I do have that at my office. I could have it down here relatively quickly, but I would need a moment to be able to put it on the computer. If I could have a 5 to 10 minute recess to try and accomplish that quickly, and perhaps I may be able to have it sent to me or some other means very quickly. I just need to be able to contact you.
All right. How much more cross-examination do you have of this witness?
5 to 10 minutes, probably, Judge, at most.
Does it make some sense to continue, bring the jury back in, continue the cross-examination, maybe do a quick email to your office about this information? And it still has not yet arrived by the time we completed cross-examination of this witness, and we can take our afternoon recess.
That would be fine, Judge. Thank you.
I just need to leave the jurors out there, you know, wondering what's going on. So let's bring our juror, Mr. Hunter.
Sorry, just you know, the concern from my side is that this is starting to drag on some in terms of this witness and the context of what she's testifying to. My concern is that this will further delay the state's ability to plead this case. It's hopeful that we get it done today, but the more we wait, the longer this takes, the more concerned that is. Just noting that, just for the court's information.
Understood. We have to be somewhat fluid in these circumstances.
Absolutely.
And allow both parties the opportunity to present evidence they believe appropriate. And so let's go ahead and bring our jurors back in.
All rise.
Please have a seat. For the record, our jurors are present and properly seated. We weren't able to complete the conversation that we have outside of your presence. We got through some of it. In discussion with the attorney, we thought it'd be best to bring you back in, follow through with a little bit more questioning, and if we need some additional time, we have to excuse you. We just use that as our afternoon break at that point. Cross-examination, Mr. Hannah?
Thank you. Ms. Tenneson, you had mentioned during direct that Teresa was told to leave and that she declined that invitation. Is that correct?
Yes.
It wasn't an invitation. The sheriff, which you recognize to be the sheriff, correct?
Yes.
And he stated that he was the sheriff, correct?
Yes.
And he commanded Teresa to leave, right?
Yes.
It wasn't a request.
No, he told her to. I mean, I guess we're just.
Okay, so in that video, there was points where individuals were asking the sheriff, where are their badges, where are their badges? You recall that?
Yes, I was one of them.
And you recall the sheriff's answer was, doesn't matter?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that the sheriff may know the law better than you do?
Objection, speculation.
Do you believe that you have a firm understanding of Idaho state law?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
And where does that understanding come from?
I'm a litigation paralegal. I've worked on criminal cases, family law cases, civil litigation. I have a pretty good understanding overall of the law.
So you're aware of the sheriff's responsibilities?
Some of them. I don't have them memorized.
And you're aware of what his jurisdiction is?
Kootenai County.
So that would pertain to everything in Kootenai County, yes?
When laws are being broken, yes.
And you're aware that the sheriff has the responsibility to preserve the peace, yes?
To a certain extent.
What certain extent?
If laws are being broken.
No. The sheriff has the responsibility to preserve the peace. That's the responsibility of the sheriff, correct?
Sure.
Okay. And are you also aware then that he has the responsibility to prevent and suppress all affrays or disturbances of peace?
No.
And what about, are you aware that he has the responsibility to command the assistance of citizens to carry out his duties? Were you aware of that?
I am aware of a recent statute that was passed in that nature, yes.
For clarification, the statute was passed in 1978.
Okay, I'm thinking of something else.
Okay. So it's fair to say then that you're not fully comprised of all of the laws, especially as they pertain to the sheriff of Kootenai County.
I do not have all the laws memorized.
So it's fair to say that you're not fully aware of the sheriff's jobs, his duties, right?
Right, I've never worked at the sheriff's station.
Okay. So it would be unreasonable for you to think that you knew the law better than the sheriff.
Objection, argumentative, and full of the question.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
It would be unreasonable for you to think that you knew the job or the law better than the sheriff.
Overall, yes. I
And
guess-
yet, at any point, did you convey to Teresa Bornpole what the rules of decorum were?
Objection, hearsay.
I'm not asking for the truth, Your Honor, I'm asking for the effect on the listener, whether or not she conveyed that information.
I'm not sure.
It's also not hearsay.
I am going to overrule the objection for not hearsay.
Did you ever convey to Teresa the rules of decorum for the event?
The event had already started when she got there, so I didn't really speak to her at all.
And at any point when she was yelling or heckling, did you let her know what the decorum rules were? And you mentioned that in your testimony that you yourself were not then further asked to leave, is that correct?
No.
Were you yelling
Yes.
after Teresa was taken out?
No.
So, her removal, you changed how you were acting. Correct? After her removal, you changed how you were acting.
No, because the event never started back up while I was in the room.
So you just left completely.
No, Sheriff Norris told my friend Cameron and I that we were going to be removed. We sat down, he called for 2 security guards, and they never came.
But and you stayed in the event.
Only until Sheriff Norris stopped recording us on a cell phone, and I felt like I could get up without being tackled or arrested.
Were you ever threatened to have force used against you?
Yes.
When?
Immediately after Teresa was dragged away, you could see on the video, Sheriff Norris told my friend Tamara and I that we were going to be removed. He then called for 2 security guards. The MC then echoed the call for 2 security guards. And Sheriff Norris said that we were next and we were going to be removed.
Did you notice anybody else being moved?
No. I didn't notice anything because I had my focus on Sheriff Norris, who said he was about to arrest you.
Okay. Could I approach counsel briefly?
Yes.
Ms. Tenneson, previously I asked you about your intentions at the event. Have you had the opportunity to have your memory refreshed as to certain comments that you may have made in an interview?
Yes, you asked me if I went to the event with the plan to heckle and disrupt.
Okay.
I did not.
Okay,
In that
so-
news interview, I explained that I chose at the event to heckle based on what was happening at the event.
In spite of knowing what the rules were for the event.
Correct.
And at some point during the event, at least you personally decided to attempt to disrupt the event.
Yes, there was a lot of disruptions coming from many different people in the auditorium, and so I felt comfortable to also express my viewpoints to the legislators.
So just one last question. Earlier, you were discussing individuals next to you. I think you used the term NPC. There was an NPC sitting next to me.
Empty seat.
NPC. My
Yes.
apologies. I wanted to clarify.
I was
that.
sitting, and then Teresa was next to me, and then there was an empty seat, and then there was a man on the end of our row
Okay, thank
that
you.
we didn't know.
Thank you. I have nothing.
Any redirect?
Yeah, just very quickly. And so, was your goal with making the comments, making disruption, as you might call it, to stop the meeting and prevent the legislators from being able to hear it themselves?
Not at all.
Was that your voice heard? Is it made everybody good?
Yes, because they're my legislators too, and I want them to know how I feel about what they're doing in their state.
And did you feel comfortable doing so based on what was going on around you in the event itself?
Yes, I've attended previous town halls where they've been completely quiet, nobody.
Objection. Non-responsive.
So I've attended previous town halls that were very quiet and calm, and nobody dissented or said anything, and in those cases, I didn't say anything. In this case, and I guess, sorry, what I was gonna say is hearsay, so I'm not gonna say it, but, in this case, there was a lot of disruption happening. There were people standing up and shouting. There were people pointing at the legislators, and we chose to stay in our seats and simply express unhappiness, I guess, with some of what they were talking about on stage.
No further questions.
Any recalls?
No, thank you.
Please, witness be excused.
She may.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Hanners, is it okay to witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you wish that you remain for purposes of?
No, Judge. I think you covered it.
All right. Statement of
They call Sarah Forrester.
Excuse me.